Hello and welcome to Engage 2020. This session is the fundamentals for getting started. Now, I do want to draw quick attention to our legal reminder. Just note that my deck may contain some forward-looking statements, and just note that any trademarks in this deck are not endorsements. But again, welcome to Engage 2020. My name is Erin Harlan. I am on the product marketing team here at Smartsheet, and my role is actually to work with product education. So I'm very excited to have you here today. And this fundamentals track is really focused on folks who are new to Smartsheet or just getting started, hence getting the fundamentals of getting started. So today we're really going to focus on, first, what is this Smartsheet thing and why do I need to use it? What is it for? Then we're also going to walk through the building blocks of Smartsheet and how those things are related. And then we're going to talk about the difference between user types and sharing permissions. I also want to remind folks that we do have some other people on the line helping to answer questions. So if you do have questions during the session, feel free to type them into that Q&A box, and there are some folks helping to answer those. So let's get started. First off, what is this Smartsheet thing and why do I need it? Well, it's because the work environment looks different today than it did before. I mean, it looks different than it did a couple years ago, even last year, or even a few months ago. We have more complexity, we've got constant change and dispersed teams, and through all of that, we're still expected to deliver more faster. And because of that, the way that we've been working just simply doesn't cut it anymore. Change is actually happening faster than business can keep up with it. And because of that, that means that change is actually happening to us rather than us being able to make change happen. And I know we're all familiar with this. We see collaboration sort of happening over here and workflows happening here and our content lives over there. But there's a lot of disparity and gaps, which leads to inconsistency. So what Smartsheet does is it brings those things together. So it brings together that collaboration and that workflow and that content management to really transform that work into dynamic work. So we like to talk about Smartsheet as a platform for dynamic work because it does just that. It brings all of those elements together into a secure, no-code platform that allows anyone to really drive that work forward. And those people can be inside of our organization. They can also be outside of our organization because we don't work in a vacuum. We also have people external that we need to collaborate with, whether they're customers or vendors or suppliers or partners. And everybody needs to be working from a centralized source of truth. One of the other benefits of Smartsheet is that it also easily integrates with all of the other tools that we use in our day-to-day work. So Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, Jira, Tableau, all of those other things that we're working in also easily integrate into this dynamic real-time work experience. So again, everything is seamlessly connected. So now that we understand at a high level what Smartsheet is and what it does, let's talk about the building blocks that make it up. And building blocks is an analogy that I love to use for Smartsheet because if you think about it, if you have a set of building blocks, you can build a lot of different things. You can maybe build an airplane, or you can build a tower, or even a rocket ship. Now, all of those things have a different output, a different use case, but they can be built from the same set of building blocks. And that's very true of Smartsheet. So it's really important to really understand what the different building blocks are. And there are 4 different important building blocks that we're going to cover today. Now, the first building block in Smartsheet, and I would probably argue the most important, is the sheet. There is a reason that the product is called Smartsheet. And that's because the sheet is actually the foundation of your work and it's where all of your data lives. So 99% of the time when you're building a solution in Smartsheet, it's probably going to include at least one sheet. Now, sheets are really powerful because they can manage all different types of data. And they're also really flexible and dynamic and allow you to work with that data in a lot of different ways, depending on what you're trying to do. So the default view of a sheet is a grid, columns and rows, which you may be familiar with. But I can also view a sheet as a calendar. Maybe I'm working with dates and I want to see all those dates in a calendar view. Or I can view my sheet in a card view if I want to organize and prioritize my information. Or I can view my sheet in a Gantt chart. So especially if I'm doing a project management and I want to see relationships between those tasks. So again, Smartsheet's really dynamic and flexible in terms of how I can use that sheet to manage that information. Sheets also allowed me to build formulas where I can do some aggregation and calculation on that data. And sheets are also where I can also store all the other pieces of information about my work. So I can attach files to a sheet. I can actually proof pieces of content in my sheet. And I can even manage conversations and all the communication about my work directly in my sheet. And sheets also allow me to create automated workflows, which automation is really one of those superpowers of Smartsheet that really allows Smartsheet to do a lot of that powerful work for me. So with automated workflows, I can say, create a reminder and remind people of an upcoming deadline. Or I can set an alert to send to people when something is completed. Or I can request an update for information or start an approval process. Or I can even have information move automatically from one sheet to another sheet when something happens. So automation is really powerful in Smartsheet, and that always happens at the sheet level. So first building block is the sheet. The next building block I want to talk about is a form. And a form really allows us to standardize and streamline the collection of data from anyone and bring it into our sheet. And what's really powerful about forms is that you can send a form to anyone. They don't have to know what Smartsheet is. They don't have to know anything about Smartsheet, but allows you to collect that information from any number of people. You can send a form to thousands of people and bring that information in. So anything where I need people to give me information, a form is a great way to do that. Forms are very customizable. I can customize the fields that exist in my form. I can also use conditional logic in forms, which is really powerful and allows me to customize the fields that actually display depending upon answers that exist in my form. So for example, if in question 1, I answer A, I might get a whole different set of questions following that versus if I answer B. So a lot of customization. That also includes the ability to customize my branding and my coloring and put in my own logo if I need to. And I have a lot of ways that I can distribute that form. So I can send it out via email, I can publish it in a website, or I can even publish it in a Smartsheet dashboard. Forms are also really easy to use with the Smartsheet mobile app. So if you haven't downloaded the Smartsheet mobile app yet, I highly encourage you to do it. What's wonderful about forms is that they're an easy way to collect information when you are on the go, when you are not sitting at your desk in front of your computer. And it's an easy way to, again, collect that information via the mobile app and bring it into Smartsheet. So that's your second building block. The third building block is a report. And reports are really valuable when you need to manage work across multiple sheets. Now, you can build a report and look at a single sheet, and that's great too. But where reports really have a lot of power is when you have multiple sheets and you either need to answer a business question or you need to manage that information across multiple sheets. Say I have a program where I have multiple projects running and I need to answer some key business questions across those different projects, I'm going to need to build a report to do that. And you can think of a report almost like a high-level filter because it's live, it's real time, and it's bi-directional. So what that means is that as the information in my underlying sheets is updated, it will automatically update my report. And vice versa, if I make a change in a report, it will automatically write back to those underlying sheets. So again, it makes that work management across multiple sheets very powerful. Reports can also be viewed in several different ways. I can look at it as a calendar or as a Gantt chart if I need to. Reports also let me group and summarize information. And reports can also be shared in a number of different ways, including publishing them or even sharing them in a dashboard. And then the final building block that you'll probably see often is a dashboard. And a dashboard is really a communication tool in Smartsheet. And dashboards are really about getting the right information to the right people at the right time. And dashboards, what's great about dashboards is that they allow you to really only surface the key information that you want to share without having to get into the weeds of all the underlying data. Say, for example, I want to create a dashboard for my executive team. I may not want them to have to see all the underlying information in my sheets. I may just want them to see the high-level metrics. So in a dashboard, I can easily do that. Also, in dashboards, I can create charts. So I can visualize the metrics that are happening and have some visual indicators to help me make data-driven decisions. Dashboards also allow me to incorporate all sorts of other data types. So I can actually put an entire report into a dashboard if I need to. I can put images into a dashboard. I can put text. I can also embed all sorts of other content like videos or PowerPoint slides, or I can even embed a Smartsheet form into a dashboard. So a lot of flexibility into how I display that information. Dashboards are also a great way to create a portal if I want to centralize information for my team. Say I have a program with lots of different sheets and reports and documents and files and assets, and I want to put them in one place. I can create a portal using the dashboard and easily centralize all that information for my team. So those are the 4 building blocks, essential building blocks of Smartsheet to become familiar with. And we are going to dive deeper into all those building blocks in some of the other sessions in this track, but just want to make sure you're familiar with those from the start. So now that we know what those building blocks are, let's talk about user types and sharing permissions, because this is one of those questions that often comes up for new folks, and I want to make sure we understand the difference between the two. So first off, let's talk about user types. There are 2 user types in Smartsheet. There's a licensed user and a free user. Now, a licensed user is a paid user with a creative license. And that means that they have the ability to create all of the building blocks we just talked about. They can create a sheet, a form, a report, or a dashboard, and they can share them with other people. So when we think of that building block analogy, they have the ability to create the building blocks. A free user has the ability to be shared to those building blocks so that they can collaborate with them, but they do not have the ability to create any of those building blocks on their own. Now, when we think about sharing, let's talk about the 4 permission levels that we have in Smartsheet. The first one is, of course, the owner. So as we mentioned, a licensed user has the ability to create new items in Smartsheet. And when they create that item, whether it's a sheet, a report, etc., they are the owner of that item. And there can only be one owner to an item in Smartsheet. And then the owner can first decide who they want to share that item to. The highest level of permission that they can share someone else to their item is as an admin. And an admin pretty much has almost the same permissions as the owner, where they also have creative capability on that item. So for example, maybe I want to give my colleague the ability to move around the widgets on my dashboard, or I want to give my colleague the ability to add new columns to my sheet. I would grant them admin access to do that. Now, because an admin access does have that creative component to it, ideally, you're going to share to someone who also has a licensed user, in order for them to take advantage of the full capability of being shared as an admin. Now, the next level down of sharing is what's called an editor. And this is probably the most common sharing permission that we see. And an editor can be either a licensed user or an unlicensed or free user. And an editor basically is just that. They have the ability to edit cells of information in your sheets and your reports. So if you have folks that you need to be able to update information, you're probably going to share them as an editor. And then the final sharing permission is a viewer. It's the most restrictive. And it's just that, where it's view-only access. There's no ability to make any edits or changes. And a viewer can also be either a licensed user or a free user. So the important takeaway I want to mention is that user types and sharing permissions are different, but they're related. So the user type that you are will impact some of the sharing permissions that you may or may not be able to have. All right, so we just covered a lot of information. We covered what Smartsheet is and what it does. We talked about the building blocks of Smartsheet, and we talked about user types and sharing permissions. And I encourage you to join some of the other sessions in this track if you want to dive deeper into any of those topics. But I also want to tell you about some additional resources where you can learn more. So if you want to learn more about anything we just talked about, I encourage you to check out our Help and Learning Center at help.smartsheet.com. It's full of tutorial videos, help articles, and templates. And it's also where you can sign up to join one of our webinars. And if you want something deeper and more hands-on, we also have a variety of different training offerings, from instructor-led training to hands-on activity-based learning, as well as a certification exam. So if you want to be that Smartsheet expert within your organization, then you should definitely get certified. And you can learn more about all those things at smartsheet.com/training. And last but not least, our Smartsheet community is a great place to connect with other Smartsheet users like yourself to share ideas and best practices and tips and tricks. And you can do that at smartsheet.com/community. Thanks so much for joining us, and enjoy Engage 2020.